that concept, that mindset shift, it absolutely changed the way I saw myself. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to Quarter Life Creative. My name is Gretchen, and today I'm going to be talking about just random things. This topic is about binge eating and my journey with that and how I was able to overcome that. I probably started binge eating my voice. So I probably started binge eating when I was a sophomore in high school. So it is at like 14, 15 years old. Before then, I had issues with my weight. Like, I was a cheerleader when I was in 8th grade, and I was the girl that they flew up in the air and they tossed. So I was the flyer because I'm very short. I'm only like 5'1", 5'2". I remembered someone commenting on how much heavier I was than this other skinny girl that they would also toss up in the air, and that really made me feel like total shit. I remember feeling like that as an 8th grader, that I wasn't good enough and that I needed to be skinnier in order to be good enough to be a cheerleader, be able to not be a burden on my fellow teammates in being heavier, and therefore like it being harder to do different things in there. So that's where this whole thing kind of came off of. And it's not to say that before then I never had any self-esteem issues, because like what 6th, 7th grader or 8th grader doesn't have self-esteem issues? I do not know, especially in the society we live in today with magazines and social media and everyone trying to look perfect and act perfect and all this stuff. And I could rant on all about that, but I'm not. So that's where that thought about my weight becoming a problem started. That's kind of when I went unconscious. And what I mean by that is I started to unconsciously shut out my negative feelings and insecurity, and I started to emotionally eat. Sophomore year of high school kind of really is when it all started, because I had this awesome group of friends in my freshman year, and it was a wonderful freshman year. And then sophomore year, all my friends kind of disappeared and they all kind of branched out into their own different thing. I would come home and I would eat this wonderful soft bread that my parents would always get from a grocery store called Wegmans by my house, and it was so good. And I would just come home and be like, yes, this bread is my friend, and like it's the only thing that could really soothe this hurt that I feel inside. I was also kind of emo when I was in high school. That's when it started. And then I continued to get worse and worse and worse and worse, all the way up till the last few years of college. It was probably a good almost 6 or 7 years of constantly binging every single day and hating myself for it. I would come home from school and I would eat lots of junk, and I was just like a bottomless pit. Like, I would eat everything and everything, and even though I was so full, it was never enough. It might have been enough physically, but emotionally I was still so hungry that I just kept on eating and eating and eating. And obviously I started to gain weight. My parents would say stuff. No one else really, like my friends didn't say anything, or other, like my cousins, they didn't say anything. It's mostly like my inner circle. So like my brother and my parents would say things, and of course that just fuels the fire and just makes me feel so much more insignificant and worthless. I remember the one thought in my head that kept on spinning and turning and kept on propelling this binging in me was that I thought that I was a pig. Like, I called myself a pig and I saw myself as a pig because I would just eat and eat and eat. And it made me feel so awful about myself. And I remember like I would sit in my car and literally eat like a bunch of donuts by myself and cry. And cry while I listen to like 30 Seconds to Mars. It's actually kind of funny now that I think of it, but like those were horrible times in my life, and I felt like I was the worst person in the world. And while I was going through that, I was determined to find the solution, and I was determined to rid this binging for good and find a way to not do that anymore. So I would go on diets. I would purposefully like deprive myself. I would make such a strict eating plan for myself that if I fail, and I often did, I would beat myself up for it so badly that I would just go out and binge. And then after I would binge, I'd feel bad. And then I would make this whole nice strict plan for myself the next day to follow as like a diet. And then the next day would come and then I would fail and then I would binge. And it was just this constant cycle up to the point where I believed I was a food addict. And I remember actually going to Overeaters Anonymous, and I went for a couple of weeks, but it just made me feel even worse about myself. It's not that that won't ever work, it's just I was stuck in this negative cycle of not only binge eating but feeling worse and worse and worse about myself, and using binge eating as a way to tear myself down and to use it as a reason that I was an awful person, an awful human being, and it was a lot of self-hate. At the time, I was just trying to change my actions. It's just I have a habit of overeating. I just have a habit of binging. And so I tried so hard to change the action, when in fact that kept on backfiring and it didn't work over and over and over again. And I ultimately was really depressed and felt awful. That's when I decided to like read a lot of books about self-compassion and self-love, self-care, a lot of spirituality books and everything, and they had some wonderful ideas. So there was this book called The Tapping Solution, which is a decent book. I originally picked it up because it was interesting in that people use like different acupuncture points in order to release and heal from emotional trauma that they had in the past. And at the time, I was going through a lot of anxiety attacks and panic attacks that were partially related to just overwhelming self-hatred because I kept on binging. This one phrase that I found in this book has completely rocked my world, and it's really helped me turn around my relationship with not only food but myself. My parents bought like this huge thing of donuts and I wanted to eat all of it. Like I wanted to eat all of it. I didn't care. I had this urge and I was going to eat all of it. So I said, okay, whether or not you only eat this one donut or you eat the entire box of donuts, it does not devalue you. And you are still equally, exactly as loved and appreciated by me, by myself, as you were if you weren't eating any of the donuts at all. That concept, that mindset shift, it absolutely changed the way I saw myself. And even as I opened the box and I reached for the first donut, I kept on saying to myself, even though you're eating this donut, I still love you and accept you exactly as you are. And then I would continue saying that to myself. I would reach for the second donut and I would say, I absolutely love you exactly the way you are, even though you're eating this donut. It makes no difference to me in who you are and how much value you have to the world. That was just mind-blowing because I think it just completely destroyed that loop that I was in for years and years and years of just eating something, hating myself, and soothing myself by eating more things, then hating myself again, then soothing with food. And it's just this entire loop that was just crashing and burning because I decided to say something like that to myself. I decided to change my thought about myself and my opinion about myself and my worth, regardless of what I ended up doing or eating or binging or whatever. I still, at the end of the day, decided to accept myself and love myself no matter what. Even if I did binge that day or I didn't binge that day, it didn't matter because none of it lowered the amount of love I had for myself. And that was the decision that I decided to make. It wasn't something that came easy to me particularly, but the more I decided, okay, I'm going to continue saying this, even if I can't feel it in my head, I'm going to say it out loud. And I guess it's similar to like an affirmation of some sort, but this was something that I really just stuck with, and I was loyal to this affirmation or the sentence or thought, whatever you want to call it, because it shifted the way I saw myself. That is what ultimately helped me get over binging for 2 years now, 2.5 years now. I haven't had any binging episodes that I could really think of, to be honest. Right now, food isn't something that I ever really struggle with or think about. And being able to say that I love myself no matter what I do or don't do or eat or not eat, that changed the relationship I had with food to a point where I no longer thought that I was a pig, and I no longer thought I was a bad person because I decided to eat a cupcake or maybe 2 cupcakes or maybe 3 cupcakes. It had nothing to do with who I was as a person. I think the biggest struggle that a lot of people have when it comes to dieting and eating well and binging is because we tie in our own morality and our own worth in something that has nothing to do with who we are and what we're worthy of. When I decided to put my foot down and say, no, I'm not going to think that I'm a bad person just because I have another donut. And I know that sounds irrational and like, who would think that? But I think a lot of people unconsciously do that by saying things like, oh, I'll be good today, I'm not gonna eat a donut, or I'll be good today, I have to be good today, like I can't go off my diet, and blah blah blah. But it's like, you're good today regardless of if you follow your diet or not. Like, it has nothing to do with who you are. So that was really the first step in overcoming the binging and overcoming overeating and just absolutely feeling awful about myself when I ate. And now, to be honest, I can eat whatever I want and I don't feel bad about it at all. I've gotten to the point where, like, trying to enforce strict rules and diets on me, I kind of shudder at the thought because it was such a traumatic thing that I put myself through when I was younger, and I don't ever want to feel it again. But I think I'm coming to a point where I want to be able to do that, and maybe not call it a diet, but be able to purposefully eat healthy without feeling the triggers of dieting and the dieting mindset. That's the one thing that I want to focus on this year, is to improve my eating in a sense where I'm eating actually healthy, nutritious foods on purpose. I have successfully solved the binging disorder part, and I was kind of in this neutral stage where I didn't really care and I kind of eat whatever I want, and I don't feel bad about it. But now I'm willing and excited to enter into this new stage where I can take care of my body and feel absolutely wonderful and at my best on purpose. So this video, I hope, helped you in some way. I hope it's not too long or ranty or anything, but that's truly what worked for me. When I decided that I will not continue to berate myself and devalue myself and hate myself based on this undesirable behavior that I kept on doing based on binging or however many calories I had eaten that day. And it had nothing to do with who I was. When my relationship with myself and my relationship with the world, with food, changed completely. Thank you guys for watching. I hope this helped you in some way. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit subscribe, hit like. If you guys are interested, go to quarterlifecreative.com to hire me as your personal success coach, because of course your guys' success is always my success, and I'm so happy and excited to help in any way I can. So you guys take care, have a happy holiday, and I will see you guys later. Bye.